The third book on this review session or explanation or summary session is The Flawless Consulting, a Guide to Getting Your Expertise Used. It was written by Peter Block in 1981 as original edition, and there are other subsequent editions as well. So when I joined the consulting firm in 2020, almost 3 4 years ago, my PM told me that this would be my third best friend after the McKinsey way and the pyramid principle. uh, when I try to answer find the answer to his statement, how can my this book can be my best friend, it has something to offer, which is answer to how to establish trust, diagnose problems systematically, and engage client effectively for a meaningful change. Now, in our case, in a researcher like us, our client can be our supervisor, our manager, our senior, or our team member who we work with. Similar to last week, there are three things: storyline, key concept, insight takeaways, and then why we should read this book. Let's go to the first one, which is storyline and key concept. It is a comprehensive guide that presents strategies and technique to us that can be used by consultant to engage client and win their trust, delivering meaningful results. In this case, researcher like us who can use these techniques. For example, I remember there are some interview techniques, there are some questioning techniques, there are some mindset techniques which are quite useful for researcher like us. The three concepts that I really loved or I found interesting are the contracting phase, the expertise paradox, and the resistance dilemma. Let's go by each one of them. The contracting phase talks about the initial meeting that we have with the client, where we talk about the expectations, where we talk about the limitations, where we talk about the insecurities, concerns. For example, the first meeting that we have with with a supervisor, like I'm going to do this, 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 and this. The contracting phase is that time. What happens is, in generally in companies or in any work environment, what people does is that they do not take enough time to discuss on the contracting phase. They just agree on some point. One person prepares agendas, second person just say okay, let's do that or let's not. However, this concept talk about the things that we need to discuss the most, which are expectations, boundaries, and fears. So the second concept that I found interesting was the expertise paradox. This paradox arises from the need to empower the client to not only accept but also implement the recommended changes by themselves. We consultant or researchers should aim for client to become self-reliant and capable of sustaining the changes after we leave, or let's say after we the consultant has left. So if consultant take full control and do not involve the client in the process, the organization may become over reliant on the external expertise like the consultant, and then what happens is when they are gone, they are clueless. At first they get intimidated by the consultant personalities, and then when she leaves, the client would not be able to understand or sustain the changes in the organization. The third concept is resistance dilemma, which refer to challenges that can encounter in the organization because of the proposed changes or solutions. The term resistance, of course, means by if there is some changes, how the company can resist themselves or how the company can adapt. So it can come from pushback, skepticisms, or reluctance to accept and implement the recommendations. So the consultant should effectively address and manage this resistance to ensure that proposed changes are embraced and successfully implemented. So these dilemmas often occur in a company. In a lot of times, what happens is the client would say something, the consultant would say something, and then the client at first place would think this is a good idea, but after a few minutes, after a few hours, few days, few months, few time, they might be resistant to change toward that point, which also need to be taken in consideration by the consultants. Uh, in terms of insights, I think making the first impression and delivering more than expected are interrelated. Of course, they are linked, but entirely different thing in consulting, because it is easier to make first impression. The personality of the consultant they have, ideas they give, it's quite impressive, but then to deliver is very different. So for us, there are three key takeaways. The first one is authenticity and trust. We need to emphasize the importance of building trust with client, member, supervisor by being authentic and transparent. Diagnosing the system, it talks about the concept of diagnosing entire system rather than just addressing some symptoms. For example, the problem is on the whole human resource department, but just cutting off the staffing or hiring cannot solve the issue. It's like whole system in the process. And last one is contracting and commitment. So as I have talked about uh, here in the contracting phase, what we can see is this book can also help us to highlight the significance of clear contracting, where expectation and role are defined from the beginning itself. So finally, there are five reasons why we should read this book. The first one is fundamental consulting skill. It is self-explanatory. It will give us a lot of resources, principles that we need to seek to pursue consulting field. Second one is client relationship building. It offers insights into building strong client relationship, skill essential for us and consultants alike. System thinking, of course, it can this can help us benefiting from the concept of diagnosing the entire system, not just particular symptoms or particular segment of the whole system. Effective communication, of course, it can help us to share our ideas more effectively, transferable manner, our research presentations, proposal, and reports. And the last one is practical guidance. There are a lot of practical advice and real world examples, making us confident to use a guide to apply the techniques during our research and delivering outcomes. So this is all for this book. If you have any concern, any questions, you can please let us know in the comment box. Thank you.